Hi, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm Representative April Berg, and welcome to my kitchen. I don't know where you are, but here it is a beautiful sunny day in Mill Creek. I am so excited to have with me today the amazing Paula Ryan to talk to us about housing. Paula is the legislative assistant for Snohomish County Council member Megan Dunn, but she's also a candidate for Everett City Council in District 2. I just gotta say, I love saying districts because this is this is the first time they're doing districts in the city of Everett. So the fact that she's running for District 2 just warms my heart. Paula is an amazing housing advocate. And so I just want her to give a little intro and background about herself to let you guys know why she's going to talk to us about housing today. So take it away, Paula.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here today. I've been doing a lot of candidate forums lately, and they ask us to talk about housing, but in like 1 minute segments. So it's nice to like get into the weeds and just really dig deep. So I'm really happy to be here today. So I'm Paula Ryan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running for Everett City Council District 2. And I'm a housing advocate. I have past experience working for the Affordable Housing Program at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Seattle. I've also worked doing housing policy at the county level, both at King County Council when I worked for Bob Ferguson and for his successor, Rod Dembowski. And then in my current position as the legislative aide for Snohomish County Councilmember Megan Dunn. I also studied it really closely during grad school at the Evans School of Public Affairs, and been working really hard in the community to advocate for better housing options for our working class families and better housing options for people who are experiencing homelessness. And I'm just really excited to be here today and look forward to having a great chat with you in your kitchen.
Thank you so much. And so you can see why we asked Paula to be here, right? Why I asked Paula to be here. She's amazing. Her background's amazing. It is really one of the most timely, I think, resumes I've seen for a city candidate in terms of what we know to be a huge problem, no matter what city you're in, which is housing and how to have affordable housing and how to get more folks into it. That said, talk to people a little bit about your city, the city of Everett. It's an amazing city, a city I've had the pleasure to work in and serve on the school board in, but the demographics, the community, it's changing, and let folks at home know what Everett's about right now.
Yeah, I think that, I would think back to BC before COVID, and I feel like the city of Everett was just on the verge of a renaissance. Like our arts and our downtown core was getting ready to explode. Our music scene was doing great, and then COVID hit, and everything kind of died on the vine a little bit. And so I've been seeing a resurgence of it lately. There's been some new art galleries that are opening and music venues. And I think with that, there comes, it's reflective of what the community is really looking for and what the new community demographic really looks like. And it's young working families like myself. And when I've been outdoor belling, I've been meeting lots of other folks that are about my age. And I learned recently that the average age in District 2 is about 36. So there's definitely a shift towards younger folks in the area, and especially folks that are living close to downtown. So they're looking forward to a downtown that's exciting and vibrant and has a really great place for them to as a destination.
Yeah, you said 36, right? Oh my word. So,
I know, I was
so
close
why,
too.
all of a sudden, I don't know why I just was like, but that's amazing because it shows you that the community is vibrant, that folks there are moving there to work, to live, to play, right? And to your point, the community has to change, or the city has to change as the community changes. So the first thing I think about is where are these folks? Where are this new workforce, this new middle class? Where are they going to live? And I know there have been some interesting projects. There was one in particular that's going in at Kmart. Can you tell folks at home a little bit about that project and how it relates to the shifting demographics of the community?
Yeah, so the new so over on Evergreen and 526, there was a Kmart for a long time, and it's been shut down for a long time, and the lot's been just a big vacant asphalt space. And it was recently purchased by a development company called Devco, and they're putting in 430 units. And they're working really hard to also make sure that there's increased tree canopy in the area and taking into considerations that there's going to be young families that are moving in there. So they've been working with the school district to make sure that the influx of new students can be absorbed. But the housing facility is going to be income capped at 80% AMI. So Snohomish County's area median income and median family income is $115,700 per year. And so let's talk about that number. That number is calculated by the federal HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And they take the not just Snohomish County, but they also include some King County areas. So the numbers can be kind of shifted a little bit since, Seattle and King County definitely makes quite a bit more money than myself and my neighbors do. And so for the area median income to be $115,700,
Wow.
the folks that are moving into the Kmart facility, it's 80% of AMI. So that's calculated at $63,350 per year for one person. So one person earning $63,350 or about $30 an hour.
And that's low income.
Yeah, it's not low income. It's our new middle class housing. And so I've been looking at other entry level jobs. Our teachers in the area, entry level teachers make about $60,000 a year, so they would qualify to live there. City of Everett bus drivers make about $23 an hour. They would qualify to live there. Paramedics make $25 an hour. They would qualify to live there. So the perception that it's low income housing isn't actually rooted in what's actually going to be reflected in income levels that are for people that qualify to live there. So I'm really excited for it. I think that we need more housing. We are desperately behind on housing availability in the area, which is only increasing housing costs and the inability for people to access housing. So I'm looking forward to it opening and hopefully helping to chip away at the housing and unaffordability in the area.
Okay, so ditto to everything you just ended with, because I'm looking forward to it too. But the only thing I can think of is this painful misnomer that we've had when we talk about housing, and we call it low income, because you said it a minute ago, middle class housing. Those we talked about, those are wages that, in labor communities we fight for. Those are working class wages. Those are working family wages. And so this is workforce housing. I mean, this is, if we want our folks, our kids, our grandkids, if we want our workforce to be housed, we need projects like this. And to say that it's a low income and give it some name that makes people go, oh wait, that's not really true, is kind of what you're telling me. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that with the income inequality that we've been experiencing, that's what's leading to the disproportionate impacts to our communities of colors, our families with a single parent, and the income levels that are necessary to meet the housing affordability in the area is not reflective of the current demographics and the current family structures that our neighbors have.
Yeah. No, okay, this is why you're here. This is why you're running for city council, because these are conversations that we all need to be having, because again, when we read things about low income housing going in at the old Kmart, there's a certain something we think about, and that's not the case at all. We're talking about workforce housing for our teachers, our nurses, our EMTs, our firefighters to come in and work and live in their community. So that said, now I'm going to take that misnomer, this new revelation for me and maybe some folks at home. Let's talk about homelessness, because right, housing is a spectrum, and so you start with being housed, and some folks in our communities aren't. And so talk to me a little bit about what homelessness looks like in Everett, and maybe even that that relationship to workforce housing or lack thereof.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we calculate the homelessness epidemic in our area is through the point in time count, which generally happens every January. And there's teams of people that make a coordinated effort across the county to, walk under overpasses, to go to local parks and count the number of homeless people that they find in our community. And the teams weren't able to do it this last January because of COVID and concerns. So the 2020 numbers are the ones that we're going off of. And in 2020, the point in time count for all of Snohomish County counted 673 people sleeping outside in January, and 459 people without a permanent place to live. So our local shelters and other folks who self-reported sleeping on people's couches or in their cars or whatnot and not having a permanent place to live. So as a housing advocate, I firmly believe in housing first, and that a person who is experiencing homelessness needs to have safe, decent, affordable housing first, with access to wraparound services to address the individual reason that they're experiencing homelessness, so that they can move up and off of the streets. I think it's unreasonable to expect a person to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Just speaking of misnomers, because if you're experiencing homelessness, to afford an apartment in the area, you need to have first, last deposit and moving costs, which is about $6,000. And if you have $6,000 to move into an apartment, then you probably wouldn't be experiencing homelessness in the first place. So I think it's unreasonable to expect people to, when they're living on the streets, to secure a job that's $30 an hour and to be able to save up enough to move up and off the streets. So having government intervention or places like Pallet Shelter to come in to help people have that first stepping stone to permanent housing is essential to put them on a trajectory towards a lifetime of housing stability.
Absolutely. And you said so much there because, I think the quote you're alluding to was MLK had said at one point, you can't ask a man to pull himself up by his bootstraps when he has no boots. And so what you're talking about as a community leader and really a leader in the city, you're talking about giving folks those boots, giving folks that initial foundation, which of course is housing. So I'm happy to hear that you are a housing first advocate. That said, not everybody in the city of Everett is. And as a result, there was a certain ordinance that passed that got national attention. I think that was one of the reasons I reached out to you and we started talking about housing in the city of Everett, because the nation was talking about housing in the city of Everett when the city council in its current form passed the no sit, no lie law. And that was something that our nation has been struggling with. And we thought we had kind of put it to bed as a country that, it is a fundamental right of all human beings to be able to walk around or sit and take shelter where and when they need it. Talk to me about why that ordinance passed. And I think that's going to take us into that pallet. You mentioned pallet shelter, so that's going to take us there a little bit too.
Yeah. So the context behind it is that the city of Everett it went before council to accept a grant from the Washington State Department of Commerce for money to build the pallet shelter village down by the Union Gospel Mission. And so right next to the Union Gospel Mission, the street there is called Smith Street or Smith Avenue. And it's for a long time, there's been a homeless population that has lived on the sidewalk outside of Smith Avenue and outside the Union Gospel Mission. And so when the city council voted to accept the grant from the Washington State Department of Commerce, they made that acceptance contingent on also passing a no sit, no lie ordinance. And the no sit, no lie ordinance would make it illegal for people to sit or lie on the sidewalk within a specific 10 block range around the pallet shelter, which included that area on Smith Avenue. And so disappointingly, it was passed, and I've been really frustrated with the city council that they are choosing to expel city resources to sweep people off the streets in an effort to solve homelessness when that's not proven to actually work. And city resources could have been much better spent to help people get access to services, get access to housing, instead of spending resources to not allow them to sit and stay there outside of the Union Gospel Mission.
Yeah, and it seemed like such a poison pill, right? So we're going to get these resources, we're going to get this temporary housing, but it's only if, we do something that's potentially unconstitutional. Was there any thought to the legal ramifications of this? Is there anything in there that could make us think that maybe they knew that this might not be quite past the muster legally?
Yeah, built into the ordinance was a clause about if the no sit no lie ordinance was challenged in court. So it was written with the foresight that it was likely
Yeah,
going to be challenged in court. So they it felt like they were already setting up the city to
yeah.
expend more
Mhm.
resources on a legal fight. We all know how expensive attorneys are.
Yes,
And again,
yes.
those resources could have been better spent to help those people find permanent housing and supportive services.
Yeah, and resources like pallet houses. So if you had an opportunity to go tour, that's one of the things. There's so many things I love about Everett. Let me just be super transparent. So this is one of the many things I love about Everett is one of the local businesses you have, which is pallet housing, pallet shelters.
Mhm.
And so, have you had an opportunity to go see these pallet shelters? Can you explain to folks what they look like, what they feel like?
Mhm. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, the facility. I have had a chance to tour their manufacturing facility. It's over in the industrial area in South Everett. So, I'm really grateful that the work that goes in there also comes back to the city of Everett. First of all, I would like to highlight their employment model. Every single person that they employ has had prior homelessness experience and cars, or they've been involved in the justice system at some point. And so Pallet employs people to give them the work skills needed to have a great resume
Yeah.
and then just have a job experience and background. So I think that's phenomenal. Everybody from their sales team to their design team to the manufacturing team, every single person there. So I think that's just awesome. So the manufacturing facility itself is huge, and they're been working like crazy. And so the pallets themselves are just like a small, kind of looks like a garden shed, but the material that they use is of top-notch quality. It's fire resistant. It's super insulated. And then the little houses themselves have a fold up and down bed. There's a little shelf space. There's a desk space. There's a small heater. There's windows, and it does feel like a tiny, tiny, cute little home. And they go above and beyond to make sure that it's comfortable and safe for the people that live there.
Well, thank you for that. I feel like we might turn into an infomercial for pallet shelters, but that is like a very good thing. I
Well,
too had an
today.
opportunity to, right? Like it's just like you too can be in on it. But it's true. And their business model is amazing. I'm glad that you pointed out the lived experiences of their workforce because that really did influence, I think, the design. And they're all locking. They all have a key. And so there's dignity and there's privacy. And that for me really stood out. In addition to that, I do have to say one last thing because again, we could go on forever about how amazing they are. They use just-in-time manufacturing with kind of a nod to Boeing and some of the manufacturing processes they took at Puget Sound for themselves and suppliers. Well, this company is using, some of those best manufacturing processes to build shelters for folks in communities across the nation that
Mhm.
are in need. So that is amazing. But the whole way we got started here, right, was talking about resources and what's the best use of resources when we're trying to help with housing solutions. So, using resources on things like pallet shelters and other supportive housing models is way better than trying to say, let's criminalize. Homelessness. So thank you for pointing that out. Um, and just so I know, because again, I rarely somebody with your expertise in housing. So let's say we're in temporary housing and waiting. We've got some resources, but we're gonna want to transition to permanent housing. How long does that take? Like, what's that process look like?
Yeah, so people who are waiting for permanent supportive housing that can receive a Section 8 voucher or housing voucher. But because of the um, dismal supply that we have in Snohomish County, the wait list is about 8 or 9 years for a space to become available for that person to move into permanent supportive housing. So while the pallet shelter itself is a great model, pallet villages like that have codes of conduct that are established by the people that live there, that have guidelines and access to services, social services like Union Gospel Missions able to provide, are great to help people get the stability that they need to move into permanent supportive housing. but there's no permanent supportive housing available
Yeah.
in the city of Everett right now or in the county. So bolstering our supply of affordable housing and affordable supportive housing is imperative to help with just continuing that flow and making sure that there's more access and more equitable access to housing stability.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I think sometimes we miss that piece of the continuum. We talk about, the housing that does exist, right? Our workforce housing. And we talk about the need for housing with our homeless communities and our temporary housing solutions. But how do you get to permanent? And how do you get somewhere that doesn't exist? It's
Mm-hmm.
like a map that leads to, to kind of this wide open space and nothing there. So thank you for pointing that piece of it out. I want to end on a happy note, though. I want to end on maybe something to look forward to and sink our teeth into, and that's going to be the moonshot question. And so, for those of you who are regular watchers of Kitchen Conversations, I love to ask my guests, what is that moonshot for your space? What is that thing that seems so impossible, but now seems impossible, but is so necessary? And I think for housing, um, I'm all ears, because I want to know what that moonshot is for housing, so that leaders like you can work with leaders like me to get us there. So what is that, Paula?
Wow. So my moonshot is that we balance out the housing supply and the housing demand in the area. But doing that, we think about the climate, we think about racial equity, we think about educational access and transportation. And I would like to see a housing supply that's diverse across all income levels, and that also has mitigating impacts to our climate and to our environment. So there's considerations for green roofs with gardens on top.
Yeah.
There's gray water tanks. There's water runoff filtration and all sorts of green housing and LEED certification incentives for housing to decrease the compounding impacts to our climate with larger housing facilities. Yeah. And I'd like to see more spaces that have mixed use that includes childcare on site, because when you have a large housing complex, inevitably there's going to be children. And we also see the impacts of COVID and how short our childcare supply is right now. So having childcare on site, having virtual learning on site, virtual workspaces on site, especially as we're moving ahead past COVID and moving into a virtual world. So just making plans for the future and not just looking 5 years ahead, but also looking 100 years ahead to make sure that the housing that we do create doesn't disproportionately impact our future generations.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is, I love all the moonshots that we hear here in my kitchen. But what I love about this moonshot specifically is that you're talking about a race to the top and not a race to the bottom. And I think housing and housing solutions and affordability, it becomes kind of this, unintentional race to the bottom. What can we do quick, cheap, without any real thought about the future? And you're talking about is the complete opposite, that we're going to get this done, but we're going to do it in the right way to help the most people in the most environmentally friendly way, which honestly will be something that could be sustainable, that we can continue to do. So I love that. Thank you, Paula. So thank you for being here too in my kitchen, talking about something as important as housing. Again, incredibly timely. Thank you for running and wanting to be a leader in your community, in the community of Everett, so that really you can have thought leaders like yourself focusing on issues as critical as housing. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Well, with that, thank everyone at home for being in my kitchen today. Enjoy the sunshine if you're here with me in the Puget Sound. And I will see you next time on Kitchen Conversations. Have a great